my screen from the phone, which is here. Which camera is working? Shit, I'm confused. Doesn't matter. So this is where you can see me. All right. So I will share my phone screen later on for the 4 demos that I have prepared. And I'm going to introduce the subject, verbally over here. But yeah, at the very outset of this month, the idea was to have kind of my contribution and add on to the talk of Sebastian, the EOS speaker, who couldn't show up today, because the EOS community has also been working very hard on a very good user experience to just draw as many users as possible to their platform, which is the problem that is one of the key issues for any blockchain community out there. And they have come up with some interesting products, interesting solutions, and the idea was for Sebastian to just present those to us and for me to contrast this to what we have seen at ETHCC this year. For those who aren't fully aware of what all these terms mean, so ETHCC is the biggest regular Ethereum community conference in Europe. There are others like AdCon in Austria and ETH-Berlin in Berlin, obviously, but these are more focused on the technology side, where ETHCC is really an event where everyone can come, anyone can meet, and a lot of projects also use it as a kind of clock to present progress in their developments. And that's actually one of the most interesting aspects of ETHCC. And a lot of product launches, presentations have actually taken place at ETHCC, in addition to the Corona situation. And that's essentially what I want to present later on. But let's focus on the key problems that we have, that anyone who's been monitoring the blockchain space in the last 2 years is aware of. And the biggest problem, specifically right after the bubble burst at the end of 2017, 2018, was explaining what this entire decentralization or blockchain space is all about and how it all works to people who haven't really been in it, who aren't so-called crypto natives or aren't really aware of what a wallet is, how to take care of private keys and all these things. So the onboarding problem has been a big difficulty, because a lot of the people who are actively working in this space are very close to the technological side, whether that is in terms of backend, in terms of front-end development, or in just designing software for the actual use. And many projects have come up with different ways to approach this problem, this onboarding issue, and certain best practices have already evolved over the years. And for me, from my personal point of view, this has taken the culmination at ETHCC, because a lot of the projects who were launching for the first time their newest iteration of their apps, of their services, all followed the same design principles, essentially. The design principle that almost everyone out there is following nowadays is not requiring users who want to onboard to get a separate wallet and then access their decentralized application through a web browser with a Web3 extension, but actually to include all of this into what appears like a simple Web2 app interface. So we're going to demo this in a minute. The way it works is that you download an app, in most cases from the Play Store, you open it up, you go through a simple sign-up process that does not include, backing up a recovery phrase and all these warnings. All this has been pushed to the settings section, but the user is made aware that this is a relevant thing and that he should check it out. But in terms of enabling the user experience, showing the user that there is value in this application for him, has taken kind of the first step. But that does not necessarily mean that users do not get to see, do not get to understand why the app that they're using right now is using blockchain in the back end. But they're introduced to it in a different way. Instead of having an on-ramp of acquiring knowledge, processing it, all this has been pushed pushed to the end of the user lifecycle, and the very beginning is just focusing on usability. And in terms of what apps are actually the most active now, so obviously decentralized finance is one of the most interesting and fastest growing ones, but I won't be focusing on that because that is, from my point of view, a very a specialty use case, because you already need to have crypto assets that you own, and then you can even reason about how you want to interact with a certain system. There are apps that are focusing on onboarding people into DeFi, but these are not as super developed in terms of user experience as the social and sovereign data apps are. So this is the introduction. I guess I can already start with the demo. Yes, I think I can do that. So I have prepared 4 demos, and I have ordered them actually in intensity levels. So I will introduce Peppo, which is a community app that runs on OST, which is a simple token. It's a pretty old project that started in 2016, and its main product is a layer 2 scaling solution to develop that. It was started in response to the fact that Ethereum as such was quite slow back in the day. And their main use case is really bringing people who are in the Ethereum community closer together. So we're going to take a look at that. Next is going to be one of the main apps used during EthCC, and that's Trust Community. Sounds pretty self-explanatory, but the app has a few surprises up its sleeve, and it also shows the very useful giving people an identity, even if it's only meaningful within a short context. For instance, the attendance of conference is really useful when you end up with situations like a sudden spread of a virus, so you can actually track people who may or may not have been affected. I'm going to introduce that later on as well. Another app, Trust Lines. It's also about community, but it's also about how people can actually think differently about paying one another. And that has gained a lot of, I think, importance in the situation that, you know, what would happen when fiat currency completely inflates, it becomes worthless? How do you measure value? How do you transfer value to other people? And I'm going to introduce Trust Lines as well. And at the very end is going to be BTU. BTU is an app that aims to reward people for onboarding into crypto. So the way it would actually work is that people use the app and start using it for real life services, where they get a cashback for each real life interaction, but they get this cashback in a certain cryptocurrency. Obviously, this is a mechanism designed to draw people into this specific app, BTU. But one of the nice side effects of this kind of gold standard of user onboarding is that these users get an actual wallet and remain in control of that wallet. If they want to off-board of the app, use a different wallet, they don't lose anything. They can just do that. They can abandon the app completely without losing anything. It's really a good example of giving people, because it's only just the wallet address still, and also teach them of the principles of self-sovereignty. All right. I think we can take if there are any questions right now, we can do them. I would have to put on my headphones. But if there aren't, we can start with the demo. I'll take a look in the chat. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we, Sasha, right? You asked how many people were at the conference. I have to check, but I guess 800 and a few were registered, as far as I remember, but fewer people actually came. So a number of speakers actually did not appear or came via video call because of their fear of a corona infection, which was actually very prescient of those guys. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to switch to demo mode on my other account. I wonder if I need to disconnect. Omri, perhaps you can help out. I'm going to share my screen from my phone.
Yeah, we can see your phone.
I think I just saw a question somewhere.
Philip said that there were around 700 people in the conference.
I'm sorry, Omri, I didn't hear you.
Philip just said that he thinks there were around 700 people in the conference, and we can see your mobile phone screen.
Okay.
We cannot hear you, David.
Okay, that's good. So I'm going to take my headphones off again. If anyone has any impromptu questions, put them in the chat. I have the chat visible right now. Okay, so let's begin. Like I said, the very first app we wanted to demo is Peppo. That's the little heart over here. A few people may have already heard of Peppo. It's the lead project from OST. And I guess Philip at least knows that I've been quite visible in Peppo, at least in the old version, where I still had my old account. Let's actually just jump in. Obviously, I'm already logged in, but what you see here is an Instagram-like interface, or maybe a Facebook Stories-like interface, where you see short videos of all the users, and you can just scroll through the stories in a chronological order and see what people have to talk about. Obviously, food, porn, always. But what I really wanted to focus on is actually the onboarding experience, which I tried to replicate on my backup on my secondary phone, but because I have a very old Android version there, it didn't really work. So I'm just going to explain it verbally and show you my my logged in account on my main phone. So what's the main premise of Peppo? The main premise of Peppo is to just showcase the technology of Simple Token. Obviously, that's their own interest, but the bigger, more obvious thing is to just get people to actually use Ethereum-based technologies in the everyday. And what they've designed is essentially an Instagram clone paired with tokens. So in order to interact with other people, so for instance, if you want to reply, you don't see this here at the moment, but whenever somebody posts a video, which is maxed at 30 seconds, they can set a price for replies. So if somebody wants to make a video reply, they have to pay the poster of the original video that they're replying to this set amount. For instance, if we do that for a moment, make some short recording talking about next to nothing, we can preview this, so we can say it's fine, and then we can actually set the price that we want to receive, our account, for each reply to our content. So what does this mean from a point of view of the users? It means that the more valuable your content is, valuable in the sense that people to reply to it because they think their opinion matters, for instance. If your content is very interesting, you can expect to just accrue a growing number of tokens. And this is kind of the internal social currency that Peppo is trying to trial and observe how people behave. But it's not the end in itself. In order to incentivize people to actually use the app, on top of that, there's the idea of unicorns, which, okay, well, I cannot really, how do I, no. Where is the demo? Okay, I cannot show it to you because you probably have to get to the website. But what's the point of unicorns? Unicorns are a secondary token that you can exchange into based on your current token holdings. In my case, this is 2.95K. And the idea is that you can exchange those tokens into unicorn tokens, and then you can use those unicorn tokens to exchange it for real life services. I would actually like to show that at some point. I guess this is, yeah, this is it, right? So, for instance, when you have those unicorn tokens, you can get discounts at Uber, Starbucks, Airbnb. So this is like an on-top offering that doesn't really have anything to do with the core functionality of the app, but it provides a way out of the system that is not the same as going to an exchange and exchanging whatever Pepo tokens you have into fiat or Bitcoin or whatever else you're interested in. So they added it seems that they added additional friction, but they did so in order for people to not just try to game the Pepo ecosystem, accrue as much Pepo with crappy content, and then just run to exchanges and make money this way, because this is always a real risk when you use apps like these. To finish up the Pepo presentation, one of the important things that I mentioned during my introduction was the wallet. So I cannot show you the onboarding right now, but when you register into Pepo, you can log in via GitHub, Google, or Twitter, which I personally think is, it's okay, but I would have preferred a truly self-sovereign solution, which we're going to see in the trust lines and BTU demos. But you at least receive, here you see your wallet details and all these things. You can actually import this wallet into any other wallet software where when you have the private keys, you can import your Ethereum wallet. And you can even add, mnemonics, you can add social recovery in the near future and all these things. So what Pepo essentially is an app that feels much more like what Instagram feels like, but it's already includes a wallet in the back end. So you can start using the app, start actually interacting with tokens on chain. But you don't really have to go through this onboarding process of, where are my private keys? How do I store them safely? What's a wallet address? What do I do with it? This is all something to be discovered for the user later on once they've really gotten the flow of the app. And this is what I personally think a very good design decision, and I'm pretty sure that this will be growing in the near future as well. Okay, no more questions no additional questions in the chat. So I'm going to continue to the next app. Next app is actually the main community app at the ECC conference, and it's called Trust Community. Yeah, obviously you already see the end state of the app, but let me walk you through what the onboarding experience for users actually was. So normally, yeah, we can actually do it the old school way, where trustcommunity.io. Well, I'm obviously logged in too many browsers, but it's okay. So when people arrived at the venue after registration, they received a goodie bag, as is often the case at Ethereum or any other crypto events. Inside that was a QR code, which you could scan and generate an identity by choosing a name and receiving in-browser burner wallet for the duration of the conference. And in order for people to actually do and use that, what Trust Community has done, they have turned this into a social game of connecting to other people. What you would do once you have onboarded into the app in your mobile browser, you would go around the conference and look for people who have a certain blue band around their arm. Many people simply didn't do that because they only came there to network with people. So a lot of people actually didn't notice that there was a game to be played. And every time you met someone and told them about, hey, let's connect on this app, you could make a connection by scanning the QR code of the other person. That's, oh, the app froze. Well, that's good news. Let's do it here. You could actually, so this is my identity. You could actually go to a certain tab in the app and scan the QR code of another user, and they would scan yours back, and that would show that you have come up, that you have connected during the conference. And you could also select badges, meaning, okay, you endorse the other speaker or the other person for certain topics. And all this was connected to a game of, okay, when are you going to connect? Because the reward for a connection were nectar tokens, which you now don't see because the account is already empty. But you would receive between 1 and most likely 1,000 nectar tokens for each connection. But the more people were connecting at the same time, the lower the value for each connection. So on the one hand, this mechanism incentivizes people to get in touch with other people, even when there isn't really that much communication going on. So there was always a drive, an incentive for people to make connections and reward one another for that. And they wouldn't be rewarded from their own pockets, because there was a pool of sponsored tokens, and sponsors actually paid hard currency to fund this pool and then distribute it among the conference users, which also, I also want to hint at this, is a very interesting way to distribute, or you could also call it an airdrop, distribute the tokens that belong to your project. I mean, this is something that a lot of other projects might be wanting to look into, if what their service is relying upon is social connections, because this way you can really quickly lead to the distribution of your tokens, especially if they're utility tokens. Okay, what else is important about the Trust Community app? Obviously, there's a gamification element. Okay, giving you rankings for each day, and also, this is too bad. Why does it freeze? I'll reload it again. I'm sorry. Yeah. As I said at the beginning, this is also the main event app. It had an agenda for the Ethereum Community Conference that you could actually search through, and those were the titles of the tracks were also the titles of the badges that you could endorse other people for: crypto economics, privacy, and so on. So at the same time, you incentivize people to connect, but you also incentivize people to look at the agenda and understand what's actually going on. And another neat feature of this app was insight into what kind of people are connecting, what kind of badges are popular. Obviously, since the conference is over, this information is not available anymore. But this is something that really brought liveness into a community that before probably wouldn't have been doing this. If any of you have attended other development or developer-focused conferences, you may have run into other classical apps like, oh, what was one of those? We Are Developers. They used a different app. They donate. So there are apps out there that are supposed to help people, onboard and connect with other conference attendees. But I have to be honest, Trust Community and the fact that it had a financial incentive for people to get in touch with one another. At many conferences that I've been, I have never seen such a high level of use for a connection app during a conference. So this is probably a good example of what other Web2 apps can do that are trying to get people to connect with one another at a conference. Another thing, the offboarding. This is something that I wanted to show. So what you see, this is my identity view. I can save it, import it into something else. I can get an NFT for attending to the conference. I can connect it to the previous version of the app that was active during the DEF CON 5 conference in Osaka. I can't request an airdrop, which I've already done for this account, so it doesn't really show. But I could request an airdrop of these internal virtual Nectar tokens into the actual Ethereum Nectar tokens that have been created in October last year. So this app wasn't active on chain all the time. It was active only within its own backend. And the airdrop request was the way how you could actually have tokens sent to you in the mainnet of Ethereum. Another thing that was really interesting was that post-conference, before the tokens were released, the Trust community developers added a new feature, people being able to signal their COVID-19 status. So everyone received an email, hey, this is the team of ECC, please take a look at this new feature in the app, and then you could actually use this to report your case without relying on any additional communication, like logging into the organizer's Slack and saying, hey, I think I was affected, la la la. You could just signal this in a completely user-focused way without any overhead communication. This is actually something that helped the organizers to just communicate back to the community at large that, hey, if you've connected to these and these people, you might want to it doesn't show my connections. You might want to get checked for coronavirus because those people were positive. So this is again a very good example of how to use the power of communities to achieve really useful outcomes. And another application that is not that very focused on local communities, but the communities that each person has in their lives and their social circles is trust lines.
Dawid, were you tested positive?
There's no relation to Trust community. It's a completely different project and team. But trust is definitely one of the shared elements. And here I actually am going to show you the onboarding process, deleting my test account. At least I hope I did. Okay. Yes. So what we now see is the Trust Lines onboarding process. Very simple. Introduction of what this app does, offering you a simple sign up or login option. We're going to sign up. First, we're obviously being instructed in, we're on a turf here. We have to be responsible for our own behavior. Great news. And that's what's happening. So you just see not even an animation, but just information that a secure digital wallet is being created for you, and you just have to wait. I find it a little bit. Well, I would personally like to see me generate my own randomness, by moving my finger over the screen, for instance. So anyone who has ever created their own public-private key pair will know this. But I guess it's okay to remove the step for the average user. So what you see is some crypto art. Crypto in the sense it's when it's generated, it is derived from your wallet address, so you can actually visually tell them apart if you have like 100, for instance. Let's give ourselves a name. Oh, I guess I already called myself like that on my main account, so let's just say we're dog. And that's it. This is the only thing that actually informs the user during the onboarding that, hey, you're handling sensitive stuff and you should probably be aware of what you're doing. But you don't have to back up now, you can back up later, and that's what we're going to choose. And now comes the functionality onboarding. So the user has been onboarded into the app functionally, so they can actually interact with it, but they still don't really know what's going on. But you already have hooked them in the sense that they did something, they are aware that they're bound somehow to the app, and now they actually get to discover what TrustLens is supposed to be used for. So what is Trust Lines? Trust Lines is a way to discover complementary currencies and also to kind of bootstrap a shared network of debt, because debt in the end is very closely connected to money. And this is a way to just start doing this inside your social circles. So you can issue, like it says here in the description, a credit line to any of your friends, and you can do this in any of the currencies supported by the app. And that was one of the main use cases and demo cases during the ECC conference. You can use this to pay back other people, and one of the amazing features is that even that, for instance, if you have separate social circles, but there is a bridge between those two social circles, then, for instance, person A can get a certain loan from person X by connecting through person B, C, D, E, and so on. And this is really an interesting feature that TrustLens is trying to make happen. And this is even this is also connected to the idea of how universal basic income systems could be bootstrapped. I'm not going to talk about this right now, but this could be a whole topic of its own for a future meetup. So if you're interested in universal basic income solutions, state of the art, what's happening in the crypto space in regard to basic income right now, I guess you can put a few words in the chat, because we could definitely get speakers about these subjects who really have in-depth both research and UX knowledge in this regard.
So David, I think most of the...
Let's get back to how the app actually looks like. So this is my view. I see that obviously there wasn't any activity yet, and I can look at my contacts, which are empty as well. I can look at my account, and here I already get to see that I have an Ethereum address, which I can copy. I can show my QR code. I can look at it from a Block Explorer point of view, and here I can check out what actually just happened. What does it mean that I have a passphrase? What does it mean that I have a recovery phrase? And this all can be checked out here in the backend. So I'm obviously not going to show you that. And this is a very smooth process of onboarding people. And like I said before, for the Peppo and for the Peppo app, you get a fully functional wallet. You can use it, import it into another wallet software if you don't like this, or you can just keep using this one. So normally I would first choose what kind of currencies I'm interested in my social circles. So the main currency at the conference was beer. You would essentially activate the beer currency. You would say, hey, I want to send, you would first need to seed the system somehow. And the way this would work, you would go to contacts, you would meet some of the developers at the conference, you would scan their QR code, then they would essentially open a credit line from them to you, and they would say that they trust you, for instance, for $500, then you could borrow $500 inside this app from them. Or what was the case at the conference, you could borrow beer tokens. So if somebody from the developers liked you, they could say, hey, you get a trust line between me, the developer, and you for 50 beers. And then what you would receive would be the count of 50 beer tokens inside the Trust Lines app, which you could then spend at the main beer counter. And this could be, as you've seen, done for any other possible currency. And that's how you clear, easy to communicate use case. Giving people a way to borrow money from you or your friends digitally. This is something everyone can understand. But people, if they get more interested, can actually take their account and use it in the whole wide Ethereum space to just explore what else is out there in terms of decentralized applications. And this is what I personally think one of the best onboarding experiences out there at the moment. Right. So I guess we're coming to an end slowly. I want to quickly introduce the last demo. which I found to be a nice contrast to what Peppo is actually doing. Let's go to BTU Direct. Also here, I cannot show you the onboarding process because I couldn't set that up on my secondary phone. But the way it works is pretty simple. You open the app, you create an account, you don't really see what's happening in the backend. You're only made aware through one message, so very similar to what's happening in Trust Lines. And then in the explanation of the services, it's also just a one-pager. You learn that you have a wallet now, and you can use your existing payment processes for, you know, paying for a hotel or booking a train or whatever else out there you have, whether it's credit card based or any other payment method based. And then you can get inside the BTU app rewards for doing so. Obviously, this is a ploy to just draw people into this wallet application because it's mainly a wallet application. But it's a very smart way to do this because you give users instant value, but you also deeply onboard them into becoming aware of what it means to keep your own decentralized wallet. And they can also just export their entire wallet and use something else if they don't like the app. So you don't really lock users in. And this is something that in previous years, before we ended up so greatly expanding the decentralized application space, was really something that was avoided. People wanted to just stay locked into apps. Maybe if you're a developer, you're aware how Apple, for instance, really tries to keep close tabs on what users do, that they don't really leave their ecosystem. And I really like this approach that you can leave the app, you still retain control. So you are actually always in control of your tokens. And this is something that is, in my personal opinion, the future key design principle. You know, accept that the user is free and that they can go anywhere else and respect the user in this way. Yeah, so this is obviously my generated wallet. And like I said before, the key feature of the BTU app is to just get cash back in BTU tokens, which you can then send to an exchange or actually use inside the app. Okay, so I guess this concludes my review overall.